Friend, enemy, or frenemy? How do Indians view the rise of China and its implications for India's rise? Join the conversation on this important topic by taking the China Challenge survey. The survey has been put together by researchers at the Takshashila Institution. Answer our 10 simple questions and let your voice be heard in shaping India's policy towards China. For more details, log on to www.takshashila.org.in or you can click on the link and take the survey in the show notes. Welcome to All Things Policy, a daily podcast by the Takshashila Institution. We are a bunch of policy nerds based in Bengaluru, and we like bringing fresh perspectives to Indian affairs and Indian perspectives to global affairs. So grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and join us for today's chat.
Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of All Things Policy. I'm Anisree Suresh, Research Associate at Takshashila Institution. Today's discussion is centered around a very crucial topic for societal progress, women's economic participation. Mariam Azeemuddin, Assistant Program Manager at Takshashila Institution, is joining us today to share valuable insights on the topic. Welcome, Mariam.
Thank you for having me, Anisree. I'm delighted to discuss this important topic on women economic participation.
Absolutely. Women's economic participation is a very essential tool for overall economic growth and inclusive development of any economy. So, Mariam, before we kickstart this very interesting conversation, could you please give us an overview of what this term encompasses?
Yes, Anisree. So this is a topic which I generally have conversations with multiple people that I have. And women's economic empowerment refers to, the ability of women to participate in, contribute to, and benefit from economic activities on an equal basis with men. And, it involves access to resources, opportunities, and decision making power within the economic system. And I feel it's very important that this is something that needs to be always addressed and it needs to be given the importance that it deserves.
Indeed, Maria. So, what are the key aspects of economic participation that policies typically try to address, especially when it comes to women's participation in the labor force?
All right. So, policies often focus on promoting equal pay for equal work and improving access to education and skill training, enhancing financial inclusion through access to credit and savings, and creating supportive workplace environments that accommodate women's needs. See, these are some things is what the policies would want to typically address, but how much is it being addressed is a question that, everybody is quite uncertain of. So that's the discussion what we.
Okay. So we'll come to that aspect, what are the efficient policy measures that we can take? Before that, how do you think, increased participation of women in the labor force and the economic participation of women in general benefits society?
So empowering women economically leads to higher household income, also improving the family's well-being and enhancing community development. And it also contributes to economic growth by tapping into a broader talent pool and increasing productivity, Ganesh.
Okay. So initially you have mentioned about the need of certain kind of policies or how we need to analyze certain women friendly
Right. Yes.
promote the labor force participation. So what are some examples of effective policies that promote women's economic participation?
If you look at policies such as affirmative action in employment, gender responsive budgeting, and talented programs to support women entrepreneurs and workers in non traditional sectors have shown promise. And if you look at it, additionally, laws ensuring maternity benefits and protection against discrimination in workplace are very crucial. So, does that make sense? How do you think about that?
Yeah. So my other question will be are there any specific initiative or the success stories that you would like to highlight here?
Of course, this is something which I have done quite a bit of reading on, and I have a few things which different countries have. A country like Rwanda have implemented gender quotas in parliament, which basically is leading to sufficient increase in the women's political and economic participation. Also in India, programs like the Stand Up India initiative, it aims to support women-owned businesses with financial assistance and mentorship. And it's something great that I feel like these initiatives are going to lead to excellent success stories.
Yeah. So, coming back to the point where, especially within the context of India, we've been able to make a lot of progress in the recent years. But despite this progress, what are some of the persistent challenges that kind of hinders women's economic participation?
This is a great question, and I feel it needs quite a lot of time that we would require to have a discussion on. But gender stereotypes is something which we as women have been seeing since the time we've been growing up, and we have cultural norms, lack of access to education and skill training, and these are some things which you'll see in the rural sectors. And yeah, we do belong to more of the urban sector, so maybe we wouldn't have seen much of it, but the rural sectors in India still do face a lot of lack of access to education and skills. And like I said, limited access to finance and technology, discriminatory practices in workplace continue to pose significant barriers. Additionally, caregiving responsibilities often, fall on women, affecting their career advancement. And this is something which needs to be addressed. And women's economic empowerment in India faces multifaceted challenges that hinder progress towards gender equality and inclusive economic growth. And if you see, Anushree, cultural and social norms often dictate traditional gender roles, which is basically limiting women's mobility, decision making power, and access to education and employment opportunities. And see, these norms perpetuate inequalities in wages and career advancement. And no matter how much we say that, yes, there is progress, how much of this progress is something that we all need to, look into. And prioritizing household and caregiving responsibilities over economic pursuits, that's something that I really wish women do rethink. And additionally, limited access to quality education and skill training, like I mentioned earlier, restricts women's ability to acquire the necessary competencies for entering and advancing in workforce, particularly in non-traditional sectors. Furthermore, Anashri, if you just see, women encounter significant obstacles in accessing financial resources, such as biased lending practices and requirement for collateral. Addressing these challenges require concentrated efforts from policymakers, communities, and individuals to dissimulate barriers and create an environment that promotes women's full participation and leadership in the economy.
Thank you, Mariam. I think that was a very comprehensive overview of the challenges faced by women in the workforce. So, how can these challenges be addressed through policies?
Yes, of course. We come to the big picture. So, see, policy reforms should focus on eliminating discriminatory laws and practices and promoting gender sensitive education and training programs, wherein they should also expand the access to finance and digital technology and also fostering supportive workplace policies such as flexible working arrangements and childcare facilities. Yes, we do see there has been a significant growth in some of our corporates. We do see it, but how much of this is being actually initiated in other, maybe like a school or maybe say a government school or in fact even private schools? How many of these schools do actually give us this childcare facility or, flexible working arrangements or anything of that matter? And addressing these challenges, hindering women's economic empowerment in India, requires comprehensive policy reforms that tackle systematic barriers and cultural and social norms through awareness campaigns and education programs that challenge gender stereotypes and promote equal opportunities for women in education and employment. And this is something that needs to be taught, I feel, not just in an educational sector, but I feel it should start from home. That's how you grow your children. It needs to start there. Our mothers or our grandmothers, I mean, we're also young women now. If you look at it, they still would say, no, this is something that you wouldn't be doing, or this is something you should be doing, or oh, you're a woman, this is how it works. Or these are some things that is just there. It's just instilled in our generational hierarchical thing of families, how it comes down. And firstly, policy initiatives should aim to reform cultural and social norms through awareness campaigns, like I mentioned, and enhancing access to quality education and vocational training tailored to women's needs is crucial in equipping them with the skills necessary to thrive in diverse economic sectors. See, this is again something which, on a personal note, I would say how much of public speaking skills do we as Indians actually have? And we there's always like a setback which we face as women, and there's always like a hesitant kind of thing that women do face no matter how much of a modern sector we belong to. And additionally, financial inclusion policies should prioritize improving women's access to credit, microfinance, and entrepreneurial support. This is something which has just been booming of lately, and while ensuring fair and non-discriminatory lending practices, or also say implementing supportive workplace policies such as maternity benefits, childcare facilities, and flexible work arrangements and timings, I would say. And, can also help women balance work and family responsibilities effectively. Moreover, enforcing existing laws and introducing new legislation that prohibits gender based discrimination in the workplace and promotes women's participation in decision making roles is essential. And by implementing these policy reforms, India can create and enable environment that empowers women economically, fostering sustainable development and inclusive growth for the entire society.
Thanks, Mariam. That's quite interesting actually to cover and look into various the action points that the policies could bring in the society. Now, looking at an international context, like broaden our perspective to look at other countries and how they're handling women economic participation challenges. So, if you look into India's policies and as well as look into other nations' policies, which some of the countries have taken various progressive gender equality measures to improve the women's participation in the labor force. So we can identify like a lot of like best practices that some of them can be adopted in Indian context as well. So do you have anything like that to share with our audience?
Of course, of course. So, one of the countries that stand out to me is Iceland. Iceland consistently ranks at the top of the global gender gap index. And thanks to its comprehensive approach to gender equality, one key policy is their equal pay certification, which mandates that companies with more than 25 employees must prove that they pay men and women equally for the same work. Iceland's equal pay certification law is a groundbreaking step, and it requires companies to undergo audits and obtain certification, Anisree, which holds employers accountable and ensures transparency. Implementing a similar system in India could definitely close the gender pay gap and promote fairness in the workplace. And this is something I'm definitely looking forward to. I'm sure you too.
Yes. So I think on the similar note, there is another example of like Sweden. Sweden is known for its generous parental leave policies, and Swedish parents are like entitled to 480 days of paid parental leave. So, and which they can share between the two parents. So this kind of encourages a very more equitable division of child rearing responsibilities and allows women to remain connected to the
Yes,
workforce and maybe
isn't
not
it?
take a huge break in their career.
Right, isn't it? So, even in India, the Indian government has made strides with Maternity Benefits Amendment Act of 2017, which increased paid maternity leaves from 12 to 26 weeks. However, there's still a need for policies that also support paternity leave and shared paternal leave to promote gender equality at home and at work.
So exactly, I think introducing paternity leave policies in India would be a significant step forward. I think that kind of help women and men to balance childcare responsibilities, but also like reduce the career impact on women who often take extended breaks after childbirth. But again, like I know when we are introducing these policies, we also have to have like a very critical analysis to see like what are the inadvertent consequences of these policies. I think we will come back to those kind of conversations in the later page. Is there any other example that you would like to share, Mariam?
Yes, so also let's look at Rwanda, a country that has made significant progress in women's political participation. Rwanda boasts the highest percentage of women in parliament worldwide, thanks to constitutional quotas that reserve 30% of parliamentary seats for women. This has led to more gender sensitive policy making.
Yeah. I think another policy that we can look at here is also India's Women's Reservation Bill kind of proposed reserving this 33% of the seats in the Lok Sabha and state legislative assemblies for women, which has been, this was a bill that has been pending
Yes.
for years. And like recently it was like, like given a certain kind of like approval. So learning from Rwanda, implementing such a bill could, do you think it could drastically improve women's representation in Indian politics? And that way, the political representation lead to further addressing of women's issues in the labor force.
I mean, definitely, political representation is crucial, and more women in decision making positions can lead to policies that better reflect the needs and rights of women. And we need women to speak for women, and who else would know us better? This includes everything from workplace equality to healthcare and education. Also, speaking of education, I would like to bring to your notice that Finland offers a model for integrating gender equality into education. See, Finland schools incorporate gender equality into their curriculum, teaching students about gender issues from a young age. This promotes, a culture of equality and respect that carries into adulthood, and that's how it should be. And it's great to see it that way.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. I think incorporating gender studies and like expanding the curricula to look into the emerging challenges in the labor force and the economic growth, I think that could be really transformative. I think it also would help to raise awareness about like various issues that's like, kind of hindering the overall economic growth and development of a society. So I think these kind of like policies and educational measures promote more progressive attitudes towards gender roles and equality, I believe.
Yes, and I believe education is the foundation for long term change. And by educating the next generation about gender equality, we can hope to build a more inclusive and equitable society. Finally, I would also like to talk about New Zealand, which has taken significant steps to address workplace harassment and violence. This is a more of a sensitive topic, which every country I feel should be addressing. New Zealand's Health and Safety at Workplace Act includes provisions specifically aimed at preventing and managing workplace harassment and bullying. And yes, we do have the POSH Act, which has been included, and that's something that is excellent. And I'm looking forward to more reformative actions in India.
Yeah, interesting, Mariam. Actually, I think strengthening a lot of like providing certain kind of an environment through policy ecosystem kind of ensures like a safer workplace for all people. So additionally, also I think the importance of awareness campaigns and training programs, and as well as like skill upskilling programs as well, is very important for employees and employers to foster a culture of like respect and zero tolerance
Right.
for harassment. Oh, thank you, Mariam. I think like we had a very interesting conversation about how to improve the women's economic participation and how we can look at various countries and critically see like how these policies would kind of help our own ecosystem to be more friendly in
Right.
nature.
Yes.
Yeah, and thank you again for sharing your insights and expertise on women's economic participations. So before we wrap up, any final thoughts or messages that you want to share with us?
Yes, of course. So I would just like to say it's crucial for governments, businesses, and communities to recognize that investing in women's economic empowerment is not only a matter of rights, but also a strategic imperative for sustainable development and inclusive growth.
Absolutely, Maria. Thank you. Thank you, all our listeners, for joining us today. Remember, like, we all have a greater role to play in advancing gender equality and creating more economic opportunities for women for a very healthy nation. So, until next time, take care and stay informed. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you liked our show, dive into Takshashila's research on technology, strategy, and economic affairs. Check us out at our Twitter handle at Takshashila INST or our website takshashila.org.in.